Getting ready to buy or sell a home in 30, 60, or 90 days? Then check out BundleSelect.com to find out how you could save 20% or more on your entire transaction. Save on real estate, lending, and title. With BundleSelect.com, technology and a personal concierge are at your service to save you time and money. Bundle Select's hand-picked team of experts will compete for your business, so you'll save thousands of dollars by bundling all of these services. BundleSelect.com gives you all the control, including using your own realtor. I'm Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, and I have been on the radio educating consumers for years. By bundling services like real estate, lending, and title, you could save tens of thousands of dollars. Act now, and this new model could save you money on your move, lower your interest rate, or cover your closing costs. Visit BundleSelect.com. That's BundleSelect.com.
The estimated minimum savings are based on a comparison with the national average. Individual results may vary, and the estimated savings are not guaranteed. Bundle Select Inc. is a licensed real estate broker. California Bureau of Real Estate Broker license number 004666902.
Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Kuchera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome in. Good afternoon. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you again for continuing to follow the show and the podcast. For those that are following us on Facebook, thank you very much for your continued support, comments. Continue to do that and reach out. Just for more information, you could always go to RERL-1491-Starting. That's RERL-1491.com. You could download the podcast there. You could also go to iTunes, Stitcher, any of those local places. Just enter Real Estate Radio Live. You can find the podcast there and follow us anywhere and continue to download and share it. The focus has been the same for almost 8 years now. Education, information. What we do is provide great guests like we have today, information, content to help you, the consumer, make wise decisions in and around your real estate. But today we have our special guest again on a regular series, Jack Russo, who is the managing partner of the Computer Law Group in Palo Alto. He's here on a regular basis every week, if we could get you, Jack. Right? Every week, if possible.
I took a vacation and thought maybe I'd be able to call in, but silly me. First of all, it's a time zone difference
well,
change.
It's Silicon Valley too. We got to get our technology squared away.
You'll get that fixed.
Yeah. Good to have Jack back in the continued series here. This is we're really on the 7th or 8th series of something new in Silicon Valley, creating something new, entrepreneurship. One of Jack's focuses in his law firm and his group. They help entrepreneurs launch new business, startups, and a variety of different things. So maybe for those viewers, Jack, that are just tuning in, give us a little overview again of your background and then what the law firm represents.
Sure. So we see a lot of early-stage entrepreneurs. The firm's name is Computer Law Group. We're in Palo Alto, downtown Palo Alto, block away from the beautiful Apple store, and I go back in the way back history of way back to the firm that started Apple Computer, and I told that story. I think we are at session 7. It would have been 8, but for the call-in didn't work, so I think it's 7, and we'll be confirmed that it is, right? Yeah. And we're really up to a point where we've taken you from the idea to the startup to maybe raising some money and getting some money in from friends, family, accredited investors, and the like. And we're kind of at the stage where you have, and literally I saw this morning, a group came in, and they kind of did it backwards. They actually already have contracts with customers.
I love it.
But they don't have an entity. They have kind of a handshake deal. They've done a lot of work.
It's kind of refreshing in a way, though, isn't it?
It is the old-fashioned way. You start kind of the wrong way, but then you fix it up. I mean, that's how Apple got started, as a partnership. And these guys, a couple of really smart guys. In fact, they wrote a little book together. The cover of the book says, 2 millennials that are actually doing something. Like they're out there making sales happen, and they've got revenue, so they've got proof of concept, and now they're at the stage of, hey, we've got to get some contracts written, we've got to get an entity done, maybe we should protect some trademarks. Oh, by the way, we never got our domain name, maybe we should do that. So they're sort of backing into making a business structure happen. But, that was, in a way, the very old-fashioned way because people didn't bother until they felt like, hey, there's a reason to form a business. So it's not the end of the world. Hopefully, knock on wood, they don't get into a car crash or something on the way visiting a customer. Of course, that won't be a great thing to happen.
Before not to sidetrack, though, that brings up a good point, Jack. I mean, you've been doing this a long time, working with investors, entrepreneurs, startups, seeing a lot of venture capital money flow. Do you think that it's changing a little bit in the sense that these venture capitalists, people getting tired of throwing money at an idea and a team, and they like to see maybe a proof of concept first where you're using less money, or does it depend on the product, the service,
Pretty much the traditional venture capital sources do not start businesses. I've said this many times. They don't just throw money at an idea unless you're Elon Musk or someone super famous. Then they will. They want to see that you have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. That usually means you literally have put your life savings, your retirement plan, maybe even the second or third trust deed on a house into the deal, and that your partner or partners are similarly committed, and that you really have good reason to make this success because you already have gotten some customers, which you feel some loyalty to. Yeah. Because, I have had the opposite of this case happen earlier this week, which is a gentleman I've known for over 30 years, called me up and said, Jack, I thought that I was going to be able to pass this business on that I've worked on for 30 years. It has a huge amount of free cash flow. It's doing really well. But my son doesn't want it. And none of my other kids want it. So I'm at the point of either I feel so disloyal to the customers, I'm not going to close down. I got to find a buyer. Yeah. And I got to probably hire a broker. So it's the other end of the story. He literally is at the end of his career, and he didn't have a succession plan. He thought the succession plan was his son or other members of his family. It didn't turn out to be true. So now he's in the process of finding a buyer and getting the business ready and doing all the things you do to get a business ready for a liquidity event. Right. The VCs want to imagine that liquidity event. Now, they'll never invest in a guy that's going to take 30 years to get to a liquidity. In his case, it's closer to 35 years. They're going to invest in things that they could see that the scaling can happen very rapidly. So whenever they see a business that has any element to it that they question from a scaling point of view, even if you have customers, not going to they will say, "Come on, how does this thing become viral? How does this take off? How does this become the next Google or next Facebook?" Now, there are many businesses that grow to big valuations, hundreds of millions of dollars. They're not so viral, but they're still good businesses. Good businesses, yeah. But a lot of times VCs want they're swinging for the fences, right? Generally, they want the big grand slam, and they'll hit one or two out of 10 or 20. Or they want a way to imagine that they can aggregate together 3 or 4 in one sort of roll up. Okay, and then they'll take the base hit or the double or the triple, and not the grand slam, because they'll say, well, I'll just pretend that you couldn't say, if we get this piece dealing with real estate brokers and this piece dealing with real estate financing and this piece dealing with real estate closing and put them all together in one major single button, I want to sell my real estate, I want to get it done quickly, I press a button, valuations happen, and they can aggregate that. Then sometimes you see sort of this puzzle maker creating a new puzzle. Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, let's get back. Seven was talking a little bit about contracts. I guess we're going to talk a little bit about employee contracts, how to compensate people. I know there's equity, there's actual pay. Why don't you share a little bit of that with us, how that could be structured? Right. We talked about the magic of Silicon Valley is you can create a company literally overnight with very little capitalization, just based on your idea, your intellectual property, and the currency of stock or stock option incentives. At some point, you get to the point where you've got the team, you've signed up the investors, you've got a product, you've got some revenue, you get some customers, and you're going to have to get into the business of getting ready to actually do formal contracts for talent for salary or some type of cash fee. There's a whole range of new issues that come to the table when you get to that point, which is you don't want to do that on a handshake. That's kind of step one. you want to have some type of formal or at least minimal letter agreement, even a 2-page letter agreement, that says here's what the terms are, here's what the termination provisions are, here's what the dispute resolution is, to avoid going to court if we do have a dispute, because a court case can bust a startup, and certainly a big court case can really bust a startup. So a lot of what I do is trying to counsel people on how to plan to avoid litigation. Yeah. And this happens, you'll see situations where the talent will say, well, I don't know, this deal is a little skinny. I don't know if I want to do this deal. There's not enough in it for me. And you literally have to explain, well, the business is a startup. You're going to get some other incentives. And there's a negotiation process, but documenting the deal becomes important, because you don't want those folks to come back and say, but I was promised a bonus and I was promised other things. So I want to talk about there's 3 classes of contracts that really become central to what I would call the operations of the business. There is the contracts with the actual employees who you hope to keep on a long-term basis, but you cannot assume that you're going to be so lucky to necessarily find the right person or see them do the right thing. So it has to have some termination provisions. It has to have some way to make the exit happen without a lot of glass being broken. That's typically called an employment agreement. And that's one class of contract that you need to expect to have for your business. The second is the shorter-term contractor consulting help kind of situation where someone comes in and, for example, they might come in and say, hey, I can help you make your sales process work. I don't expect to sign a long-term contract. It might just be a 90-day deal. I'm going to come in. I'm going to interview you. I'm going to go through what your needs are. I'm going to go through how I can help put into place what they now call the software stack of applications, like, for example, Salesforce, maybe Slack, some of these other tools that can all be knit together. So when you have a lead, the lead makes its way into your system so that there's follow-up. Right. And that becomes pretty much the hygiene of growing your business by bringing in leads, qualifying them, closing them, and closing them with the right type of contract. But here, that contractor paperwork, it has to be wisely written too, because you want the intellectual property that's associated with your specific business to stay with your business. So if they're doing an improvement of a sales process for your particular business where your particular steps are key to your business, that's really your property. They probably don't know about those steps. You need to tell them this is how we qualify leads in this business. They may have a generalized, here's generally how we do it, the sales funnel concept and the like, but you're going to give them a lot of knowledge specific to your business. That's your knowledge. That's your proprietary information. That may be your intellectual property that potentially could be protected and shouldn't make its way to a competitor. And then the third type of contract that's out there is when you deal with people who are not quite employees, they're not quite contractors, they tend to be more like advisors or consultants or people you're not going to really expect to do any particular project, but you might have them in your circle, in your network, because you're going to share with them problems. Sometimes they're called troubleshooters. They're people that fix problems or can get you around a problem.
They can make connections or something.
And make connections, and they sometimes can create some really big alliance deals. And these people are typically compensated with stock or some sort of equity, but they want to sign something, and you should sign something for all the same reasons, because there are improvements to your business that you do want to own, that they should be able to give to you as part of their deal. Those are sometimes called consulting deals or advisor deals, but it's the network of the employment deals, the contractor deals, and these other, I'm putting them into this category of other consultant, advisor, independent contractor deals. All three of those together are the network of contracts that brings talent into your business, hopefully on an exclusive basis or nearly as exclusive as you can get for your segment, so that you're protected against competition, at least while they're working with you. Right. In California, this is a big thing to keep in mind. You cannot have a non-compete agreement. Unlike other states, like I've explained, I'm licensed in New York and some other states, which allow non-competes after the agreement is terminated. In California, we have a special statute. You cannot do a post-employment, post-consulting, post-contractor non-compete.
Really?
You cannot do that.
Is that fairly new, or has that been in
that's
effect
been
for
around,
a long time?
It's been around a long time, and there's been a few exceptions that the legislature has put in for, what about if someone sells their business? Well, that's a natural situation to allow a non-compete. That case I talked about earlier this week,
right.
When he sells his business, he's going to agree as part of the transfer, the goodwill is all going to the new buyer. He's going to get paid for that, so there can be a reasonable non-compete for a reasonable period of time that extends to a reasonable geographic scope. But as to any other type situation, the notion of a non-compete in California is illegal, and we had a case this week where, as a joke, I thought it was a joke, but the person said it was serious. He said, well, I like to put the non-compete clause in my paperwork because that at least kind of deters people from thinking about coming. And I have to explain, and
just throw stuff in there.
It was an East Coast. It was an East Coast lawyer. Yeah, I know you guys in California, typically East Coast lawyer. I know you guys in California. I know you're not. You don't like this stuff, but we like to put it in there. So the New Jersey accent, of course. Well, you really can't do that because that's considered an unfair labor practice in violation of another statute in California that both would void the contract and allow damages. So, in California, we have a network. In fact, lots of people think, California is so challenging to have employees, and it probably is more challenging than the average state. But the rules are pretty well settled. And you really do have to know those rules. And, in fact, there are people out there, just a footnote on the employment side, there are people out there that think there are so many rules that when you get to a certain size, I typically like to say at least 20 or 30 employees, some people would say 10, you can use an outside service like TriNet, there's a bunch of them, that essentially provide a streamlined set of benefits for your employees. And they technically co-employ your people.
Kind of a little mini HR department.
They're like a mini HR department because essentially they're saying you can't keep track of all this stuff. You don't have an inside lawyer. Your outside lawyer is probably too expensive. Just use us. We have inside lawyers, and we'll make sure the forms are all updated, and we'll make sure that stuff happens the way it should, withholding happens, the benefit plans are correct, and to some degree they're batching a group buy on the benefits so they can create some economic value.
Wow, that's great. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do that, though, maybe you could give the listeners information about if they're trying to reach you, Jack.
Sure.
If they want to entertain working with your firm, how would they reach you or contact you?
So the website is www.computerlaw.com. I'm Jay Russo, or simply Jack at computerlaw.com. And the phone number is 650-327-9800.
Very good. All right, we're going to take a quick break. For those on Facebook, stay with us. About a minute or so, we're going to come back, and we're going to continue the conversation with Jack Russo. We're talking about entrepreneurship, startups, and specifically tell you a little bit about some contracts. This is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Stick with us. We'll be back to the continue in just a minute.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
Getting ready to buy or sell a home in 30, 60, or 90 days? Then check out BundleSelect.com to find out how you could save 20% or more on your entire transaction. Save on real estate, lending, and title. With BundleSelect.com, technology and a personal concierge are at your service to save you time and money. Bundle Select's hand-picked team of experts will compete for your business, so you'll save thousands of dollars by bundling all of these services. BundleSelect.com gives you all the control, including using your own realtor. I'm Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live, and I have been on the radio educating consumers for years. By bundling services like real estate, lending, and title, you could save tens of thousands of dollars. Act now, and this new model could save you money on your move, lower your interest rate, or cover your closing costs. Visit BundleSelect.com. That's BundleSelect.com.
The estimated minimum savings are based on a comparison with the national average. Individual results may vary, and the estimated savings are not guaranteed. Bundle Select Inc. is a licensed real estate broker. California Bureau of Real Estate Broker license number 004-66902.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's topic or guests, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Joe Kuchera.
Welcome back in. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Our guest today in studio is with us usually every week or so. Jack Russo is the managing partner at the Computer Law Group. We're talking about contracts today specific to startups, entrepreneurs, getting companies started. This is an ongoing series. We'll continue to do it. If you have questions for Jack, you could always reach him off the air or the podcast. He's permanently on the website. If you go to RERadiolive.com under legal services, Jack and his team are listed there as well. So if you're thinking about starting a business, you have a business, or really have an idea, right, Jack? I mean, so a lot of what you guys do, intellectual property. So if someone outside of a business, let's say someone has a product idea would that be someone they come to you and consult with?
We see those inventors all the time.
Okay.
They come in saying, I think I'm on to something. In fact, we saw one earlier this week who's completely innovating an area that you might think is not subject to innovation, which is he's turning the home washing machine, the traditional.
Right.
I told him a story about my parents, and when they bought their new washing machine, it was a big deal in the household to get a new washing machine.
The neighbors came over and looked at it. And
It's a big deal. It's a better story than that. I can't tell it on air because it's like X-rated.
I'll use my imagination.
You can. Anyway, the net of it is, he said, there's not been innovation for 70 years.
Oh, okay.
He said it's been like the same thing. He said if you take apart, and he's a tinkerer, if you take apart a washing machine, almost every washing machine is the exact same set of components. There's a drum, there's a pump, there's a motor. There's nothing that's been done to those electronics other than put some fancy flashing lights on it. Of course, that ties to this X-rated story, which I'll tell you off air. But the short and long of it is he said, I've created a better interface with a flat panel screen to make the washing machine, and by the way, he baked into it a dryer as well. He's actually got it on the market.
So it's a combination.
Combination. And we were sort of spitballing, hey, well, how do you get volume sales to happen where you really need to have people start seeing these things? Because the traditional thinker, I think, goes to Home Depot or Lowe's or a big box store. And
the problem is those guys aren't going to want to see something like that, right?
Well, that's what we were
spitballing.
Well, that's what we were spitballing. If you can get this device down to a smaller unit that literally fits into a small apartment, the biggest thing that I've heard real estate people say who do these developments of apartment buildings is that it's an add-on if you can put a washer-dryer into the apartment so people don't go to the basement at night.
Right.
They don't want to go to the basement at night and risk, who else is down there, right? They don't even want to talk to anyone.
Right.
They want that thing to run in their apartment. Well, the problem is if you have a 900-square-foot apartment and limited closet space, where do you put it? So the spitballing was, well, can you imagine a future where this thing literally can go into the kitchen under a cabinet, which is the way Europeans do it.
Okay.
Europeans very much put the washer, and also it's sometimes a combined dryer, into the kitchen because the family assumes all the work of the household is happening in that room.
Right.
Now, in America, we have our own
different
separate rooms, a different story, but maybe that's going to change. This tiny house movement has happened, and maybe to some degree you get the size of this down, and then you can make the touch panel. And I was arguing to him, he was disagreeing, that get rid of the touch panel and make the smartphone the touch panel.
Right.
Because that piece of electronic that you're putting on that device, that's going to cost a lot of cost.
Well,
if you take that cost out of it, we already have the device. Just make it work, make it connect.
I would think it'd also be a perfect integration with the voice, right?
Well,
the voice command.
We had that discussion too. I mean, he's a really smart guy, and he's got a really interesting company. But it's a classic example of someone coming from the computer field, seeing something like the way I guess you could say Elon Musk saw a car and said, hey, that can be electrified, and said, if I make this fully electric and I can build, and this takes the guts of, I can build a network of places to charge. I mean, that's a big statement.
That's a big statement.
And then I could acquire a solar company to put solar panels above all those charging stations.
Amazing.
And maybe even in houses.
Right.
I could change the whole dynamic of energy use in the world, not just the U.S.
And work on SpaceX at the same time.
On the side, do a lot of other things. I mean, it's a real example. I mean, he just got, the reason he's on my mind is because he's got the employment deals of all employment deals. According to the newspaper, he's got a minimum deal that the board just signed him up, and I guess the shareholders approved, for $2.6 billion in compensation over the next 5 or 10 years. And we all looked at it. We used to say, if you can get an employment deal where you're actually representing a client who gets like $10 million, and you're not a sports figure, you get $10 million a year, you're kind of a high-class employment lawyer.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being an employment lawyer for Elon Musk? I mean, the person must have gotten the paperwork. It must have been shaking saying, there's $2.6 billion riding on this. I better get this right.
Oh, my God.
But, they signed up a big, big number in a situation where I don't know if anyone's worth that kind of money. I mean, that's a big
amazing
number, right?
Well, you could argue maybe he is, if anybody is. I don't know. It's interesting. So there's one of the neat things about this series we'll continue doing is there's the dynamics all over the place. And what I mean by that, you have all the importance of the infrastructure, the contracts, putting the corporation together, raising the money, and all the. But it's easy, isn't it, Jack, to forget about the idea or the concept? Not forget about it, but you could see why you have someone that's super brilliant or bright or educated that comes in with an idea. But in many cases, you see it all the time. The idea could be a very good idea, but who are you going to help get it to the marketplace, market it, sell it, social media? There's so many different things that go into this.
It's an amazing thing to say that even the most brilliant ideas, many of which have happened, never got off the ground until all patents expired. The electric car was invented over 30 years ago, and it was squashed. There's movies about that. Supposedly it was squashed by the oil industry in conspiracy with the car manufacturers. Whether that's true or false, we did not get electric vehicles in a real sense until literally 30 or 40 years later. And even now, there are people that are saying that there's all sorts of roadblocks in the way that shouldn't be in the way. And so there's many examples of great ideas that never quite get pushed far enough. Now, there are also, many marginal ideas. I mean, look, I hate to rag on Facebook. I think, of course, they've done immensely well. I wish I still own the stock. I mean, probably would be retired at this point. But the point is that that's a very, very basic system of allowing people to share photos and text and maybe now video. So that was around decades ago. There were people doing that in one form or another. He was able to, with the team of people around him, get enough users to contribute enough information with a business model that people didn't understand at the time, that, well, you don't have to charge people because there's value for advertisers. Right. Now, of course, that's what's exactly that's causing the controversy. Yeah. People didn't realize, hey, your profile is up for grabs
or up for sale,
and it could be misused, and it could be misused even by folks who Facebook didn't imagine were misusing it, because information tends to want to be free, even when it's locked up, as we know from all the security breaches. So to get back to the employment stuff, you want to have stuff that assures that you can control a situation where there are data leaks, where there are problems, and you want a dispute resolution system baked into that set of documents that allows you to deal with the dispute not in the 2, 3, 4, or 5 years that litigation takes, but maybe ideally in the 2, 3, or 4 months of mediation, or maybe a little longer for arbitration, the way in which business people should mostly get disputes resolved, so that all that dirty laundry, I can't even imagine what Uber would have had to disclose if the case that they actually filed against Kalanick when they decided to boot him out. There was a big case that was filed, and his lawyers moved it to arbitration, and that's all in a confidential arbitration now. So a lot of that Uber dirty laundry that some of
that's all going to remain confidential.
That's all going to remain confidential, and that's probably a smart thing because
probably for everybody.
It probably would have hurt Uber shareholders and maybe even Uber customers.
Right.
Now, a lot of the stuff that the government brings, for example, against Uber or against Facebook, that's all going to be public. That's all going to get amplified by the daily sound bites of CNN and Fox News. And, there's not a lot of spin control you can do there. As much as they want to believe that they can control things, that information is going to be released. And, right now, I think someone told me Facebook has lost $30 or $40 a share. Which
it has the last couple of weeks.
Which is like billions of dollars. Well, there's class action suits now that will follow. There will be lawyers that say that something was mishandled and that the securities holders that lost all those dollars, so a lot of it, there may be people that hold long, but those people that sell out, they're going to say, I want to recover for my loss. This is, before we get a minute or so to go, but this brings up a good point right along with kind of in our conversation today with contracts and the importance of them to make sure they're right. Why is it, you've been studying law and you've been in law for so many years, why is it that these companies, that they get in trouble, something happens, what kind of advice do they get that they don't come out right away and just be honest about? Isn't that always the best way to handle it? Yeah, I think what happens is... he kind of got himself, potentially, Zuckerberg, right? Because they had this information for a long time before they... Like the big credit issue when, TransUnion, whenever someone breached that, right? Yes. Right away, don't you have to come out and disclose that? Well, or should? It's worse than that because, and this is a part of the story that most people have focused on, it turns out that the UK laws are more protective, and the EU laws in particular, and UK as well, even though they're trying to leave the EU. But when they were part of the EU, and these laws are still on the books, UK protects data in social platforms better than the US does. So there's a professor, I want to say he's a law professor, it might be a social scientist, that hired a barrister, an English solicitor and a barrister, because you have to have both there, to bring a case against Cambridge Analytica, the company that's in the middle of this, because he said, you have my data, and under UK law, even though I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm entitled to see what you have. I'm entitled to access. That case was filed like in 2015, so there was a public filing that Facebook should have been on Facebook's radar, that someone was upset that his Facebook data was shared with this UK company in the UK and had filed a suit in the UK. So they're not going to be able to say, well, we really didn't know, because that guy put it in a pleading. So they had to have at least constructive knowledge of that. Your point is they had actual knowledge. And the issue is there's so many spin doctors and PR firms and others that think, well, maybe we could spin it one way, maybe we could spin it another. And I thought, I actually watched that video of him in that interview. And I thought to myself, boy, I posted this, in fact, I said, this reminds me of over 10 years ago when he got sued by the Winklevoss brothers in that litigation. And there were all these famous cases. And I said, this is a little bit like karma making its big circle here and saying, well, there's only so many people that you can dodge a bullet around. And to some degree, I think that's the question is, and there's certainly reviewers that are saying, it's over for him if he wanted to run for president of the United States, because people have been saying he might want to. It might be over for other people at Facebook in terms of their credibility. And the interesting part is there's now a recognition, even within the Facebook camp, that they may have to accept that they're going to be a regulated media company. Interesting. Now, they may not know what that really means yet, because it's going to change the game in a dramatic way. And up to this point, they've said, hey, we're a technology company. We're not a media company. We don't have to do things that media companies have to do. We're just pure technology. Certainly opens the door to competition. And what I've been saying for a while is why IBM or other big players are not pouncing and saying, join our social network. They have the technology to do it. They bought a company years ago that predates Facebook. Yeah, you wonder why Google or someone doesn't jump into that, right? And says, look, we'll charge you $1 a month, but we absolutely will not sell your profile, and we will not even bother you with ads. We'll treat it as a subscription-only service.
All right, unfortunately, we're out of time, but we're going to bring this back next week and continue the conversation on this series. As you could tell as you watched this, a lot of good information. Jack, thanks again. Great show, as usual. Good. Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Remember, for more information, you go to RE Radio Live. It's tune in to download the podcast. Until next time, take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.